A king's vow, I don't want power anymore. I want this. One of Ajaan Fuang's students once gave him a book on King Asoka. It included the translations of some of the Asokan edicts. After he read the book, Ajaan Fuang said to me there was one sentence that stood out for him. It was a determination that King Asoka had made, saying that all the good he'd been doing, he didn't want to dedicate it to become a king again. What he wanted instead was to have a capability within himself. That's a literal translation of the Thai. You might say he wanted to have the ability to depend on himself. You can imagine that, as king, he had to depend on a lot of other people. Reading the edicts, you get a sense that he was frustrated, that nobody seemed to be up to what he wanted them to do. So he wanted to be in a position where he could depend on himself. That really struck a chord with Ajaan Fuang. You can understand why when you think of the history of the forest tradition. On the one hand, the monks were dependent on the fact that there had been some reforms coming out of Bangkok, new texts coming out of Bangkok. But on the other hand, all the forest Ajans really had to depend on themselves, even to the extent of depending on themselves to recognize the true Dhamma when it came. And it's not the case that everybody who listened to Ajahn Mun was immediately taken by his teachings. I once read a Dhamma talk by Ajahn Chah, where he was pointing out how Ajahn Mun and Ajahn Sao divided families. People, even in the same family, would break with one another. Some people liked Ajahn Mun and Ajahn Sao very much and were inspired by them. Other people were not inspired at all. But what was important was that some people had the capability within themselves to recognize the true Dhamma when they heard it and to follow it. When you think about the Buddha's teachings on being able to depend on yourself, they come down to his teaching on making an island for yourself or a refuge for yourself through the practice of right mindfulness. And three qualities of right mindfulness are particularly relevant: mindfulness itself, alertness, and ardency. With mindfulness, you're keeping something in mind, and it requires some discernment and discretion. What are the things that really are worth keeping in mind? The definition in the text says, keeping in mind things that were said and done long ago. That can apply to things that other people said and did, and also things that you said and did. But even that requires a filter. What things that were said and done long ago really are worth remembering? What mistakes are worth remembering? What things you did well are worth remembering? What things are really relevant to what you're doing right now? Which things are not? You want to have that ability within yourself to tell which is which, what's applicable right now, and what can be put aside. Think about Ajaan Lee's comment that if you have discernment, then all you need is a machete, and you can set yourself up in life. He was referring to the different noble treasures, pointing out that of the noble treasures, discernment is most important. So your mindfulness, to be really useful, does require discernment. It's the same with alertness. Alertness is not simply noticing what's happening in the present moment. It's noticing what you're doing and the results you're getting. That quality is going to be responsible for developing a skill. Take Ajaan Lee's example of making a basket. You try to choose a good teacher, and then you learn from the teacher how you do the basic weaving. But then you've got to do the weaving yourself. The teacher can't make your weaving smooth, even, good-looking. Can't make the shape of your basket good-looking. You have to do all that yourself. And how do you do that? You make a basket, and then you look at it. If it's not up to snuff, then you make another one and try to figure out what you did wrong the first time. You keep coming back, doing it again and again. and then judging your actions by their results, and continually making adjustments. This is all based on alertness. You have to be reflective. Think of the Buddha's image to Rahula. The practice is like looking into a mirror. This is a problem with a lot of insight methods. They're not very reflective. I remember reading one insight teacher saying, "You see that all perceptions are inconstant, stressful and not self, except for the perceptions of inconstancy, stressful and not self. Those are special, put aside, not anything you want to abandon. But, hey, they are perceptions. Even though they're right, there comes a point where you have to let go of right. It requires a certain amount of alertness and reflective investigation to realize when you hold on to these things and when you have to let them go. In the same way, you approach the practice as a skill with your breath and the way you relate to the breath. Where are the best places to focus? What is the best way to breathe? What's the best way to picture the breath to yourself? These are things you do, and then you check up on the results. You're alert to what you're doing. If you're not alert to what you're doing, then you can't really gauge the results at all. You may not like the results, but you don't know what you did wrong, so you don't really know where to change. You have to see the connection between what you're doing and the results if you want your knowledge to be useful. Then you're ardent. You try to do it well. This too requires discernment. In fact, of the three qualities, it's the one in the canon that, in its definition, is directly related to the question of what's skillful and what's unskillful. The canon defines mindfulness simply as the ability to remember what was done and said long ago, which could apply to almost anything. Alertness is being alert to what you're doing, and again, you can be doing something skillful or unskillful. But ardency is where you try to get rid of what's unskillful and develop what's skillful. This is where the real discernment comes in and applies both to the mindfulness and to the alertness. It's the ardency that makes you eager to figure out what the right things are to keep in mind and who are the right people to listen to. After all, even when you have a capability within yourself to depend on yourself, in the practice, you're not really independent until stream entry. Up until that point, you do have to depend on other people, their teachings, their recommendations, their example. But it's up to you to choose whose example and teachings are worth following. So the more ardent you are in wanting to do this well, the more carefully you make your choices, and the more discernment you're going to have to bring to them. Where do you learn the discernment? You learn it from the combination of all these three qualities together. If you're alert to the teachings that you're taking on, then what they inspire you to do, and then the results of what you do, that helps sort through the mindfulness. That way, you gain a good idea of what the good things are to apply right now, and what things you can put aside. It's through these qualities acting together that you can develop that ability to depend on yourself, to have a capability within yourself. As you look at the world, you realize there's a lot out there that you can't depend on. So the more you can depend on yourself, the more capability you build within yourself, the better. So that wherever you end up, even if you don't have a machete, you can still set yourself up for life. You can still look after yourself because you're mindful, ardent, and alert, reflecting on what you're doing and trying to do it well. And as you do, you find that you can depend more and more on yourself. You do become your own refuge, your own island, so that you're better off than kings. Think of King Asoka, looking back on his life as king and realizing that the one thing he lacked was the ability to depend on himself. Well, the Buddha and the Ajaans teach us precisely that. how to depend on ourselves. And it's up to us to take their lessons to heart, take their example to heart, so that we can see how far we can depend on ourselves, how far our actions can take us. The Buddha and all the Ajahns say they can take us far. How far? That's up for us to find out. But when we develop these qualities within ourselves, we're more and more likely to find what they're talking about and to see how good it truly is. Noble treasures. Ajaan Lee once gave a Dhamma talk on the topic of the noble treasures. 7 qualities of mind that, as the Buddha said, are not burned by fire, not washed away by floods, can't be stolen, can't be seized by robbers or kings. You probably know the list. Conviction, virtue, a sense of shame, a sense of compunction, learning, generosity, and discernment. When he got to the end of the talk, Ajaan Lee said that of the 7, the most important one is your discernment. If you have discernment, he said, all you need is a single machete and you can set yourself up in life. In other words, you may not have a lot of other advantages, but if you can think things through and use your ingenuity, you can work your way around all kinds of obstacles. Ajaan Lee himself was an example of a person of discernment. He had a lot of health problems. He died at age 55. He'd had a heart attack about 10 years prior to that, and it was because of the heart attack that he developed the method of meditation that we practice now, working with the breath energies in the body. When you read the instructions he gives of how to work with the breath energies, you notice that is very clearly based on what a person who is suffering heart problems will need. You start with the breath coming in through the back of the neck, going down through the spine, because the back of the neck is where there's a lot of tension when there's trouble with the heart. What this means, of course, is that you look at your problems, your health problems, and figure out what's needed here. What kind of breath energy would be good for this particular problem? Try your ingenuity. Use your machete. If your first idea doesn't work out, well, try another idea. Learn how to turn your ideas inside out. The important thing is that you never give up. You keep at this. At the very least, it means that you're taking a proactive approach. You're not simply a victim of situations. You will run into things that you can't change with the breath, but you'll know them only after you've tried. You don't give up first. So in Ajaan Lee's case, even though he had a short life, he got a lot out of it, largely by using his ingenuity. When something was difficult, he'd figure out a way around it. If nothing else, he'd make a vow to focus his energy and his attention to really understand a problem. This aspect of meditation is all too often overlooked, especially in methods that give you a set body of instructions and say, just do this and don't make any variations. But how do you know that the results you get from just following a method like that, putting the mind through the meat grinder, are going to be genuine? How do you know that those insights are true? The whole point of insight, the whole point of discernment, is that you see cause and effect, and the only way you're going to see cause and effect is by manipulating the causes and seeing how that changes the effects. So here we're trying to get the mind to settle down. At the same time, we find that there are issues in the body. We all have them, and you can use them as your motivation for wanting to figure out this problem. How can you get the mind to settle down in a body that's not really in good shape? Partly to energize the body, but primarily to give energy to the mind. Ajahn Fuang had a number of students who had chronic health problems. In the years I've been going back to Thailand, I've noticed that the ones who have chronic health problems are the ones who really stick with the meditation. because they find that their lives and their well-being really depend on it. So approach this as you would any puzzle, always convinced that it's not beyond your ability to figure it out. In some cases, that may mean learning how to live with certain physical limitations, but using the good qualities of the mind to compensate. That right there can be your noble treasure. Then look at the other noble treasures and see which ones you need to work on as well. After all, that's one of the duties of discernment, to figure out where you're lacking. How's your conviction? Conviction in the Buddha's awakening means conviction that human beings can do this. You're a human being. You're in the scope of the Buddha's teachings, so you've got this possibility too. Look at your virtue, your sense of shame. The word shame has gotten really bad press, especially here in the States, even though we could use more of a sense of shame. You have to realize that there's a healthy sense of shame and an unhealthy one. The healthy one, which we're trying to develop, is the one that says, that particular action is beneath me. I would feel ashamed to do it. And based on that sense of shame, you don't do it. It's your motivation for being virtuous, your motivation for avoiding harmful behavior, whether it comes under the precepts or not. Compunction, which goes along with shame, basically focuses on the results of the actions. You realize, I can't be apathetic. I care about the results of my actions. I want to make sure I don't do any harm. Then there's learning. Here meaning the knowledge of the Dhamma you get from listening to Dhamma talks and from reading. You might try memorizing a couple of the Buddha's teachings, some of the short ones like you get in the Dhammapada, the Itivutaka, the Udana. Phrases you can call to mind when you need them. This is one of the reasons why we do the chanting over and over and over again. To get the rhythm of the chant and the words and the message of the chants into your body, into your mind. Everyone's had the experience of having a melody going through your head over and over and over again. It depends on what you listen to a lot. So listen to the chanting a lot. Engage in the chanting a lot. Get that rhythm, get that melody in your head, so that if there's going to be a melody in your head, let it be, may I be happy. May all living beings be happy. All living beings are the owners of their actions. All these things are good to keep in mind so that you can call them to mind when you need them. Generosity is generosity of spirit. You can express it through giving material things, giving your time, giving your energy. It's an expansive quality of mind, and it brings with it a sense of wealth. You realize that you've got more than you need, and you're willing to share. All of these qualities are noble treasures, things you can take with you. Because as we train the mind, we're training it in certain qualities. And the qualities do carry over from one life to the next. Often we don't think about which qualities we're training ourselves in. We could be training ourselves in some pretty unskillful ones. We don't think of it as training, but that's what it is. You're directing the mind in a particular direction. So when you think about what you're going to take with you, and this can apply to what you take with you when you leave the monastery, or to what you take with you when you leave this body, the best things to take are good qualities of mind. Ajaan Mun once made the comment that qualities like virtue are really, really valuable. If people could steal them, they would. But that's the nice thing about them. You can't steal somebody's virtue. You can't steal somebody's generosity. Nobody can steal yours. These things stick with you wherever you go. So look at the qualities you're developing, because those are your treasures. When you get home and open your bags, this is what you want to find: generosity, conviction, discernment. Good things, things that are worth carrying around. Fortunately, you don't have to wear yourself down as you carry them around. They're light. The unskillful qualities are the ones that are really heavy luggage. And when you open up, they're worthless. It's like packing your bags with scraps of iron, scraps of whatever, old chunks of cement, lugging them around and then finding they're of no use at all. when you get back home or to the next lifetime. So work on the qualities that are light, that you don't have to lug around, and they'll provide you with what you need wherever you go.